All right, welcome back to another edition of the Force Athletics Life and Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Infurna, and today I have a badass, awesome guest. We've been trying to schedule this for like 2 years,
Right.
and one missed try this week, but I have Mary Theisen, right? Did I pronounce that right? Lappen, Wisconsin-Oshkosh throwing coach, so repping Oshkosh today. Sacrilege for my kids at Naz and Fredonia. But Mary, thanks for taking the time to sit down with us tonight.
I'm glad to be here. Sorry it took so long.
No, that's okay. It was definitely worth the wait. So Mary, tell us a little bit about how you got into throwing as a high school athlete.
I guess I played softball and track. I tried both. And I honest to God hated softball. I thought it was so boring, and I think everybody just thought I would be good at it because how I was built.
Right.
And I just literally was so bored.
Mhm.
So again, I did both. I tried both. My high school coach in softball like begged me to still play, and I'm like, no, I can't. Like I can't. So I did track, and I actually liked basketball way more in high school, but I was good at track. So that's kind of how, I guess my dad was just like, you should do track. And so that's kind of how I ended up starting doing it. But
So how did you, so when did you realize that you were like good at track?
well, I was super bad in middle school, so it wasn't really that fun. Like I remember my freshman year of high school, I threw the shot. So in seventh and eighth grade, we threw like the 6 pound or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
And in high school, you switch to the 4K.
Right.
And even though it was heavier, I threw like 6 feet farther my freshman year than I did in eighth grade. And so my first meet ever, I threw 40 feet in my freshman year. And I was like,
Wow.
I was like, I guess that's not bad. And so then, I don't know, again, I loved basketball, and that was kind of my thing. And I skipped track meets for AAU basketball, and like I skipped for basketball, like everything was basketball. And even though I'm tall for an average female, I'm not like 6'2".
Sure.
So I'm like 5'9". So I don't know, it was probably like my sophomore, junior year, like I started getting all these letters for track, and I got maybe like 2 for basketball. I was like, oh, like, so then I realized I could probably go to school for probably little to nothing track. So then I was like, all right, I guess I'm good at track. So
So when you were going through the recruiting process, right? Because you threw much farther than 40 feet by the time you were junior and senior. So what, talk a little bit about like what you looked at in regards to selecting the school that you were going to go to. Was it location? Did it have anything to do with like the teammates, like the team that you were going to join, the coach, like previous team success? Like what kind of led you in one direction over the other?
I would say location was the number one priority for me. I'm the oldest of 4 girls, very, very close with all my sisters and my parents, everyone in my family. So when I narrowed it down, I looked basically within a 3-hour radius, and that was about it. And at that point, it was basically narrowed down to University of Wisconsin, University of Minnesota. And then that was it. I was either going to go one or the other. And then that was when I was beginning of my senior year probably. And I'm like, I didn't want to look at smaller schools because I didn't want to be recruited by these big schools and then tell my friends like, oh, but I didn't go there. Like I wanted to be like the cool kid at school that was going to like the Big Ten school or whatever. But then the more I talked with my parents and whatnot, I actually had a call from Winona State, which was D2 in Minnesota. So literally like an hour and 10 minutes from my house. So really, really, really close. And so I was like, wow, like the coach was actually really nice, but I'm not going to go visit, So then my mom was like, well, let's just go to narrow it out, like maybe you just want to see it, whatever. So after these like 3-day long visits at Minnesota and Wisconsin, where they bring you on the field for the football games, and they put you in this fancy hotel and you eat food fancier than you've ever had before.
Right.
I go to Winona State for literally like 3 hours and have lunch, and I'm like, yeah, that's where I need to be. So I guess it's probably off topic, but even if high schoolers or whatever college coaches are listening, like I think it's super important to look at other levels because I mean, I probably could have done decent as a D1 athlete right away, but I probably would have kind of just been lost in the mix of things.
Sure.
So I think it was a really good decision, and I'm glad my mom kind of was like, let's try this,
Mhm.
and so, and then after you leave, you go to college your freshman year, no one remembers where you go anyway, your high
Right.
school friends and whatnot. So it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, it was a great decision and
Mhm.
I really liked it there.
So, so when you stepped on campus, what were you expecting? Like, what were your expectations showing up? I mean, you were a great thrower in high school. You walk into a team, and is like fall conditioning hard? Are you like, oh my gosh, like what did I get myself into? Or was it like, were your teammates, they just welcomed you with open arms?
Well, it was actually kind of strange. So
Mhm.
as my teammates at Winona
Mhm.
were like there was much more of them than there would
Mhm.
have been at Wisconsin or Minnesota.
Sure.
And there was two really good girls at each school that
Mhm.
freshman, like at Minnesota and Wisconsin that first year. And so
Mhm.
I would have been like maybe two or three out of those freshmen.
Mhm.
But even the four girls we had in my class at Winona,
Mhm.
everyone was good.
Sure.
And so it was kind of like we all had to kind of learn that yeah, we're gonna be buddies, yeah, we're gonna be friends, but there's gonna be times where it's gonna kind of get difficult because
Right.
we're all very competitive.
Mhm.
So, and plus we didn't have a men's team there. So it was
Okay.
like we had like, I don't know, 12 to 15 women,
Mhm.
very competitive and like just good women,
Mhm.
So it was fall conditioning. It was good. I mean, it was hard. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't expecting any. I've never done anything like that. I've never
Mhm.
done like I mean, it's hot in the fall too,
Right.
So you're doing all this stuff in the heat, but our team was awesome. It
Mhm.
was, I mean, we had our little spats, whatever, but everyone does. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't have wanted to be around anyone else, especially
Mhm.
coming in because those girls were just really, really good.
Mhm.
And I loved my coach a lot.
Mhm. What was about your coach that you love so much?
I don't know. There was just no BS, It was just
Mhm.
like, this is who I am. This is
Mhm.
how I run things.
Mhm.
He wasn't afraid to like give you shit sometimes,
Sure.
like it wasn't always like perfect and I'm not always playing a game. And it
Mhm.
didn't feel as much as like a business kind of,
Sure.
like it felt like it could be like a home away from home and
Mhm.
like a family member.
Mhm.
So that was kind of what I guess the first thing that made me
Mhm.
feel at home with him. And like I
Mhm.
said, I only spent like 3 hours with with the team members and him, and I was like, this is where I want to be.
Mhm. Right. So talk a little bit about like meet prep at that level. So in high school, you just to share with everyone who's listening, what were your personal bests in the shot put and discus?
Um, Shot put I threw 45.6 and discus I threw 152.
Okay. So talk about like how you started preparing for your first meet, the beginning of December, right? Your 45-foot shot putter, that's competitive at the D2 level, right? And almost any year you might all American. So talk about like what's it like to prepare at that level as opposed to, I'm just preparing for like a regional meet or, state championships back in high school.
Well, I went to a private high school, so
Mhm.
there was three throwers on my team.
Okay.
So it was already like way different. And
Mhm.
as much as like I loved the people on my team, they did it because it was fun. I
Right.
didn't. Again, I'm not saying it wasn't fun for me, but it was more than that for me.
Mhm.
So I guess just going into college, and I mean, it was way different.
Sure.
Coach in high school was amazing, and I to this day like credit him for anything. I mean, I probably wouldn't be coaching if it wasn't for him.
Right.
But I mean, it was a lot different.
Mhm.
You, it's I went to again a small private high school. My
Right.
school was in the smallest division in Wisconsin. Like
Mhm.
there wasn't a lot of competition in high school.
Sure.
And then you go to where I went, and
Mhm.
I mean, we had 5, 6 girls over 150 feet in the discus.
Right.
So it's like you don't get to have a bad day, even on your
Right.
own team, let alone going
Right.
to the.
Right.
So the nice thing about having the team members that I had was that I was always prepared for those meets.
Mhm.
Because even if I like was competitive on my team, I was most
Mhm.
likely going to be competitive at the meets.
Right.
So like even at our conference meet, I remember my sophomore year maybe
Mhm.
we had 6 girls on the podium at weight in the conference.
Right.
Like it was just unreal. So you have to kind of be on your A game even at
Right.
practice. So
Right.
I mean, I guess that's the good way to have it.
Mhm. Now, did your coach like did he have like a way of like sitting everybody down and like talking about like goals and expectations that like you had for the season coming in or like 4-year outlook? Like how?
Well, we had a lot of one-on-one meetings,
Okay.
and I'll be honest, like I've always required a lot of, I don't want to say I'm high maintenance as an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
but I get very, even now, like I second guess myself a lot, even when I'm doing well, if it's not like absolutely perfect.
Sure.
I need like, I don't love it, but I did always and still sometimes do need like reassurance that I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
well.
Right.
So him and I got like, we had a lot of meetings and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like goals and talking about that things and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. We didn't have a ton where it was all of us together,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd say like individually, like I was in there a lot
Okay.
talking about things
Mm-hmm.
and what I wanted to do. And we talked about things like back then. I mean, we talked about throwing 200 feet in discus. Like we
Mm-hmm.
talked about stuff like that. And I mean, obviously the plan changed and everything
Right.
changed, but we talked about a lot of things for even that week. And we talked about things 10 years from then, it
Right.
was
Mm-hmm.
short and long-term goals.
Right. So how much of that have you applied to your coaching? Like not to jump too far ahead, but you're coaching at Wisconsin-Oshkosh, which is, one of the premier Division III throwing programs in the country. What did you take from those early college experiences that you apply with the kids that you have now? Because you have a squad of all squads, right? How many kids did you bring to indoor nationals this year?
We had 3.
You had 3 this year. Last year you had a ton. I mean, you were probably going to bring another 6 or maybe
Yeah,
6
sure.
total outdoor
Yeah,
nationals,
we
right?
had
Like,
a lot, which
right,
was bummer, but
right. So, like, is there anything in particular that you learned those first few years that this is how I want to do it if I coach, or I probably shouldn't do that?
um I'll be honest, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't have as many individual meetings with them
Mm-hmm.
as we did.
Mm-hmm.
I do have kids that are more like I was, where I mean, I have a few athletes that stop in my office every day,
Sure.
and we happen to talk about track, and
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes we don't, but um, we, I guess it just depends on the athlete, some
Right.
kids require more than others,
Mm-hmm.
and we do have like a meeting after indoor, a meeting
Mm-hmm.
after outdoor. People kind of fizzle out and leave at different times, but
Sure.
I mean, I have goals for them too, and I tell
Mm-hmm.
them. So some of
Mm-hmm.
them are secret. Some of them I don't
Right.
want to like make them feel like pressure or something. But
Right.
after indoor, for example, last year, I was really disappointed with how we did at conference.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took a couple days to decide like how I wanted to go about it. And basically, I just took the points we scored and what I thought we could have
Right.
scored, and what I think we could do outdoor.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually we did better than I thought outdoor. So,
Sure.
and I don't get like firm or mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like I rarely like yell at the kids,
Sure.
but I was pretty bummed after indoor,
Right.
and they knew I was.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when I kind of explained to them why I thought we could do better, they were like, "Oh, I think you're right."
Right.
So again, I don't meet with them as much as I met with my
Mm-hmm.
coach in college, but again, I think it just depends on the kid.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you started at one school, but I think you finished at another school, right? Indiana State.
Yep.
Yeah. So talk about the transition to Indiana State. Because there, I think your career like blew up, right?
Yeah. So basically, I always had my freshman year, especially, I always had that in the back of my head, like, I love where I am. My
Mm-hmm.
teammates are awesome. I love my coach. I love being away or close to home.
Right.
But I also kind of had it in the back of my head, like, I was recruited by like all big schools and then
Right.
this school, and this is where I ended up. And I almost sometimes, like, I would think about how it was like the safe option.
Sure.
So after my freshman year, I was supposed to win discus outdoor.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me, I got 8th, so I did
Mm-hmm.
really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'm done. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, first of all, I shouldn't have been like the person that was supposed to win as a freshman. Like, it's not
Right.
supposed to be like that.
Right.
And so, and then when I did bad, I was like, I'm leaving. Like, this isn't, like, I totally took it out on everybody else when it
Right.
wasn't anyone's fault. I just had a bad meet.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, and my parents and I, we talked, we're like, you're not leaving on a bad meet. You're like, you
Right.
have a bad taste in your mouth about one track meet. You had a good season. So then I was like, okay, you're right. Well, then at that meet, actually, I met a boy, and he was in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
So we dated all that year when I was still in Minnesota.
Sure.
And then after my sophomore year, won nationals in discus.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then I was like, okay, now I'll leave.
Sure.
And so like, the only reasons I left was, the biggest reason I left was because of that boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I didn't tell people for a long time.
Right.
But now as like almost 30-year-old and someone who should try to teach other people not to chase boys around the country.
Right.
Between that and then I always wanted to know if I could make it at that next level,
Right.
but it was never anything bad that happened in Winona. I loved my
Mhm.
coach. I just talked to him like 2 hours ago.
Sure.
Winona. My teammates were awesome.
Mhm.
Like, it was never anything bad that happened in Winona. It was just a series of weird events and a little bit of wonder if I could do it at the next level.
Right. So talk about doing it at the next level. Like, what happened when you got to Indiana?
Well, my teammate, so I looked at all the schools in Indiana, and
Mhm.
basically as soon as I got offered a bunch of money, I was just like, sure, I'll come here.
Sure.
So I ended up at Indiana State.
Mhm.
My teammate was Felicia Johnson. I don't know if you know that name.
Sure. Yeah.
So she's thrown like 23, 24 something in the weight for the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
And I was kind of like, oh, like this isn't really what I'm used to. And so I'd kind of gotten away with like some things that I probably should have done better at. Like, I one-turned in the weight my freshman and sophomore year.
Okay.
And so like I think I threw like, was it just under 19 meters in a one turn on the weight.
Okay.
And it was kind of like, even as a coach now, it's like, well, if you're doing well throwing a one turn, just stick with the one turn. But then again, now I'm like, well, you're an idiot. Like, if you can 19-meter one turn, you should be able to throw like 22 meters on a three.
Right.
So
Right.
it was, I don't know, it was just a lot different. And so I gained about, 40, 50 pounds, got super, super strong. Never really got that much better at the discus, but I improved about 8 feet in the shot.
Sure.
Didn't get much better at the weight.
Mhm.
I basically became a shot putter. So
Right.
I got really super strong, really heavy, and just didn't really have the flexibility and the movement that I needed in the discus anymore. So,
Mhm.
I guess it ended up working out. Like, it was a
Right.
little bit different than what I had expected, but my first year there, I wasn't all that great.
Mhm.
My fourth year, I busted my ankle really bad, and then I got
Mhm.
mono, so I redshirted that whole year. And then my
Mhm.
fifth year was kind of like, I guess, my breakout / last
Right.
year.
Sure.
So I got fourth at indoor and outdoor that year in the
Mhm.
shot.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
So what year was that, your senior year or that last year of college?
Yeah. What about it?
Yeah. So what year was that?
Oh, that would have
When
been
was it?
2014.
2014.
Yep.
So you're 2 years out from the Olympic trials,
Yep.
right? So you graduate. So was that like in the back of your mind, like, I'm already,
Yeah.
in the low 50s. I'm qualified for indoor nationals. Should I give it a shot?
So that was the plan.
Mhm.
So my last meet ever was at US Championships outdoor that year.
Right.
And I threw okay. Like, it
Mhm.
wasn't great, but that was the plan. I was going to take the summer off. I had all my stuff packed in Indiana. I was going to fly back to Indiana, drive my car home. Anything that
Mhm.
didn't fit in my car, I left,
Mhm.
like, basically on the sidewalk, and people just grabbed it.
Mhm.
But I basically I was going to go home, get settled in where I was moving,
Mhm.
take the summer off, kind of reset, lose some weight because I felt
Mhm.
kind of fat.
Mhm.
And then in the fall, I would pick up again and start training and start whatever. And then in the summer, I kind of had an identity crisis. And I was like, I don't know if I want to throw anymore.
Right.
I talked to a couple people and I kind of thought about it. And I just eventually decided, like, I think I need to channel my passion for track and field on the other end of it and be a
Sure.
coach, because
Mhm.
that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a volunteer assistant at University of Wisconsin. And
Mhm.
I was like, I'm probably not going to have time for this anyway. And I don't want to
Right.
do it half-hearted. And
Mhm.
so basically I just decided, like, I think I can be a really good coach. And
Sure.
it was always a goal of mine to make it to US championships. And I did. And that to me was just like, you know what, like, this is, in my opinion, the best I can be.
Right.
So I just kind of tried to end on a high note. And
Mhm.
I feel content with it. So
when you made the transition to college coaching, what was that first year like? I mean, because you're still relatively young, right?
yeah.
So you're coaching athletes that are maybe like 2 or 3 years younger than you. So talk about like those first like few experiences of, sitting on the other side of the desk per se.
Well, I had a really great transition because, like I said, I was a volunteer assistant at Madison.
Mhm.
And they had, that year was Kelsey Card's last year.
Mhm.
So she was a 2016 Olympian.
Right.
And Michael Learman, who threw 25 meters in the weight, he was a
Yeah.
senior. So these people that I was around were like amazing once in a lifetime people.
Right.
And so then also we had redshirt freshmen that were just really great. Like they need to learn the weight, like you're going to work with them, like that type of thing. So, and I had thrown against Kelsey, you know, so it's kind of weird, but they were amazing. Like it was a weird thing because even though they were D1 and I was D1, it was not really the same, you know. The facilities and the stuff they got and the meets they went to, like it wasn't like the same, but it was still cool to be exposed to that.
Right.
And being with Dave like for a year, like I learned so much from him. And like I said, I talked to him the other day, like, so it's the relationships that I built there, and Kelsey and I talk a lot. So it is, I mean, that year was really awesome. I liked that. I traveled the country, like been to places I've never been. And I don't know, it was a really great year. I loved that year.
So from your coaching perspective now, you kind of like hung up the, you know, your throwing shoes for a little bit. Talk a little bit about like how those athletes, how they prepared for meets. I mean, you know, Mike, like you said, it's a once in a lifetime 25-meter thrower every single meet for the most part that indoor season. Like how did they prepare, you know, maybe differently than what you know, Instagram or like social media might show? You know, it shows all the highlights, but like talk about like leading up to that, because like, every throw is in 25 meters, right? Every throw isn't like perfect. So what's it like working with athletes, like preparing them for, you know, NCAA D1 nationals?
I mean, like you said, there's Instagram and there's the things, and honestly, 2015 that would have been, like Instagram really wasn't that big yet.
Right. That's right.
Not like now, but still, like you think about, like for me, example, when I'm throwing my last year and Kelsey Card's whatever, junior, senior, when I'm finishing, and I'm like, this girl's amazing. Like, I don't understand how she does what she does.
Right.
And then you start to see her every day, and it's like, she has days where she's stressed out, or days where she had a bad day with her boyfriend, or a bad day with a class, or things like that. And it's like, oh, like these people are human, you know, like they actually have a lot of bad days. And then you kind of learn, like you learn those things you have to learn to get through a day that's bad, you know. You just days where you just kind of hold on, and days where you're really not going to get much done, you know. You do what you need to do, you drill, or you do things that maybe you just go lift that day, like things like that, and see that those people are human, you know. It's amazing, but at the same time it's like, wow, like I didn't think that was I think you had bad days. I just figured you were amazing every single day.
Right. So after you wrap up in Madison, you transition to Oshkosh, correct?
Yep.
So talk about how you made that transition from you know, working with 25-meter throwers, national champions, and then you transition to Oshkosh, where, you know, you're given the keys to you know, one of the richest, deepest programs ever. What was that experience like then, where you're most responsible for your throwers?
So I knew I wanted, as much as I loved that experience, and I loved going to, like, I went to New York City with them, and I went to California like 3 times, like all these like awesome places, and places that I'd never like been, or, you know, and then you go to Oshkosh and it's like, you go to 2 hours away, like, you know, like in Wisconsin, and every meet's cold, and you don't get to go to San Diego every other weekend. So it was, when I got to Oshkosh, there was a 4-year gap between the old coach that was there and when I got there.
Okay.
Coach went to Penn State. And so there was enough time where the like good people, or at least most of them, were gone.
Okay.
But when I got there, we had 5 kids. And when they were like in the past, they'd had maybe like 20 something.
Sure.
So, and then 2 of the athletes I had one was like literally like 10 months younger than me. Like it was, and he was very stubborn, and I didn't know if I wanted to coach after being there with that 1 year. I just didn't. It was a hard year.
Sure.
So it was me just kind of like wanting to use what I'd learned, and all these things that I had like drawn up, and all these plans that I had, and all these things I had grabbed from different programs that I liked, and I was going to make my own. And then I had like just some kids that didn't want to listen, you know. And it wasn't necessarily like their fault looking back now. It was, they had like 4 coaches in 5 years. And so then here comes this new coach that they probably think's just going to leave. And in reality, now I just finished year 5. And so it was, I wish I could have those kids now, you know, because I think we would have had a really great relationship. I also
Right.
like didn't want to like have a bad relationship with them. In reality, I didn't want to be their friend necessarily, but I wanted them to like me,
Mhm.
you know. And now it's like most of my kids, like I would say 99% of my kids like really adore me, you know.
Sure.
And but there's also some kids like I have to get on more,
Mhm.
and they are totally respectful of that, you know.
Mhm.
They do it just they know that I'm doing it because that's my job. And
Right.
but that first year was bad, like it was pretty miserable,
Mhm.
but it got better each year. Like each
Right.
year was a little bit better. And then this last year, even though it got cut short,
Right.
the virus was literally my favorite year I've
Mhm.
had, which stinks that it was cut short, but
Right.
it did get better each year.
Mhm. So do you think like your street cred of your previous throwing successes, I mean your Olympic weightlifting stuff like is taking off now. When you have kids sitting in your office, you know, high school seniors or maybe juniors that are just like visiting, like do they recognize you? Like do they take into consideration like, oh my gosh, my coach threw at the, you know, US indoor nationals or outdoor nationals. Oh my gosh, she, you know, clean and jerks, you know, 163 kilos. Like, does it help? Do you think? Like, do the
Um,
parents like? Does it like play a role in anything? Or
and so I'll be honest, like I don't tell people a lot of that stuff. You know what
okay,
I mean?
right,
My head coach is always like, tell them, like tell everyone. Like I would tell everyone if I was you. And it's like I had one of our best sprinters, like he's an all-American sprinter.
Mhm,
He asked me like literally like maybe 2 months ago. He was like, wait, you went to USA's?
mhm,
I'm like, yeah. He's like, are you serious? And he was like freaking out about it. And it's not that I'm like, I don't know. I never really know how to like fit it in a conversation.
sure,
Like, and even like when people come in my office, like I keep all my track stuff at my office because I don't
mhm,
want my house to feel like trophy like stuff.
right,
You know what I mean?
right,
So I keep it all in my office. And so like even if I have athletes come in,
mhm,
it's mostly the other kids, sprinters, jumpers, those
mhm,
kids. Holy crap! Like you have so many trophies in here. Like, but my kids are they're just like, oh yeah, it's whatever. Like
mhm,
she's always winning stuff and like
yeah,
being silly and teasing me. They tease me about it all the time.
mhm,
But I don't know. It depends. Like I'll be honest. Like there's
mhm,
times where people think it's really cool, and then I have
mhm,
times where I had a recruit's dad ask me if I felt comfortable coaching men, and I was like, last year I was in the running for men's assistant coach of the year. You know,
right,
so I'm like, want to be sarcastic because I'm kind of sarcastic. And be like, oh, I don't know. Like you're probably right, probably not. But in reality, like it's so it depends. Like some
right,
people think it's like the coolest thing in the world, and
mhm,
this year has been probably the most people have noticed it just because like I think it is because Instagram, to be honest, like with
mhm,
like the lifting stuff. And
mhm,
um like I remember one week there was, or maybe it was like one day, it was like within like an hour,
mhm,
all these throwers from the same school all followed me.
mhm.
And I was like, oh geez, I guess they're talking about me. You know
Yeah,
what I
sure,
mean?
right, right,
So I don't know. And they were in our conference, and
mhm,
so I don't know, it's just funny stuff like that. And so some people think it's really cool, other
mhm,
people like probably don't know.
mhm,
But I don't, like I said, I don't tell a lot
right.
of people.
Well, you've made a pretty like seamless transition with that. I mean, you coach full time. You're married. You train full time, like twice a day. How do you manage that? Right. Like I think people sometimes take it for granted. Oh, you know, Mary's just, she has all the time in the world. She could go train in her garage and whatever. But like, what's that like? Like, how do you like mentally like prepare?
Yeah,
Okay, I got this session this morning, then I'm gonna coach 25 athletes, and then I'm gonna try and have lunch, and then I gotta take
yeah,
recruits out, and then I gotta do this, like, and then I gotta train again.
yeah.
Like, how do you do it? Like, how do you like mentally get ready for that stuff every
Well,
day?
so, like, I'm very organized.
Mm-hmm,
So like I do like the internet planner stuff, but
mm-hmm,
I like to write stuff down, like
sure.
in my planner.
Mm-hmm,
And so I plan everything. I have like, I guess referring back to like when we weren't at home because of the
mm-hmm,
virus, yes.
mm-hmm,
I get my workouts on Sundays. I
mm-hmm,
decide like what I'm doing that in the morning, what I'm doing
mm-hmm,
in the afternoon. Um, I try to be at work by like 8:30, so I go to bed usually around no later than 10:30.
mm-hmm,
My husband works nights,
mm-hmm,
so as much as that kind of like stinks, I can go to bed whenever I want. I can do whatever I want at night. You know what I
right.
mean? So it's kind of like a weird situation, I guess, because I don't
Mm-hmm,
see him that often, but I
right.
do whatever I want to do because I'm by myself.
Right.
So I pretty much just get up early. I do usually squats or something in the morning. I don't do well with clean and jerk or snatch in the morning because I need to wake up.
Sure.
I sit down a lot more than I used to, like at
Mhm.
practice on purpose.
Mhm.
Like we have these little like boxes in there and I
Mhm.
coach from the box. And obviously
Mhm.
I like am getting up and telling the kids and showing them stuff. But
Right.
I used to be on my feet all day because if I was exhausted when I got home, it didn't matter.
Right.
But now like I'm sitting a lot more because I have to, or I won't
Mhm.
be able to get through my workouts.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I lift in the morning, I coach during the day, I do my office work in the morning before practice, and then I come home and I lift again and
Mhm.
eat supper, take a shower, and go to bed. You
Mhm.
know, so it's very monotonous and it's the same
Right.
every day. But I don't know. I think it means more to me that I'm having some success with it, and
Right.
I have like a busy life. You know, so
Mhm.
like I mean, I'm not taking away from any lifters that don't have jobs,
Right.
but it like I take a lot of pride in that
Mhm.
I can do both.
Right.
And I love track and I love coaching and I'm not gonna get rid of it.
Right.
So I mean, there's days where it's like miserable, but
Mhm.
most of the time I'm just like tired, you
Mhm.
know?
Sure.
It's fine, but I'm just tired a lot.
Mhm. So when did you really start getting into like more competitive with the weightlifting? Like when did you realize, well, I can like compete for, maybe, try, qualify for the Olympic trials or, uh, senior nationals, like
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Um, it was the summer 2017 or like the
Mhm.
fall, so like August, September-ish.
Mhm.
And I hadn't lifted since 14. Like I haven't lifted in 3 years at this point because I
Wow.
didn't want to, you know.
Sure.
I had lost a bunch of weight and
Mhm.
I know most of it was muscle, but I
Mhm.
just felt fine and
Mhm.
I was walking my dog like an hour a day, like
Mhm.
just long walks and I was fine with everything.
Mhm.
And then Mike Gattone, who's the like one of the technical directors of USA Weightlifting,
Mhm.
was recruiting someone else to do weightlifting, Kurt
Right.
Jensen. I don't know if you know that name,
Mhm. Yeah.
shopper.
Yeah.
And he put my name in there and he said, no, you need to recruit her.
Right.
And so then he got a hold of my videos and he's like, why is she not doing this? You know,
Right.
from college or whatever, my lifting videos. And so we ended up going on vacation, my husband and I, and
Mhm.
then we came back and that's when I kind of like started it. So I
Mhm.
started in October-ish of
Mhm.
2017 and I had never snatched before in my life. Like
Mhm.
we did some narrow grip snatch in college, but never
Sure.
like anything heavy.
Right.
So I had no idea what I was doing and I was really bad at it. I'm still not that good at it,
Mhm.
but it's a lot harder to come back to / learn than clean and
Right.
jerk for me.
Mhm.
So I had experience in clean and jerk. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess that January I competed. I did well in clean and jerk, sucked
Mhm.
in snatch.
Mhm.
And so I've just been, I guess, ever since then, just each meet is a little bit better. And I'm kind of realizing like my coach always jokes about, but he's probably right. Like I was
Mhm.
like put on the earth to lift, which I always think I was always probably a better lifter than thrower anyway.
Right.
But I mean, I didn't know about competing in weightlifting, you know,
Mhm.
so it was something that I didn't really look into because I didn't know
Mhm.
about it.
Right.
So you follow like I mean Sarah Robles, like you see them on
Right.
Instagram, Holly
Right.
Mangold, those
Right.
girls and stuff. Like I knew who they were, but I never once thought myself I should do that.
Right.
But I do love it, and it's different, and it's not as stressful as throwing was for me.
Mhm.
So I guess now I'm just doing my best to make some noise in the sport and see what
Mhm.
happens. Yes.
I mean, you just competed at the Arnold.
Yep.
Like you made some pretty big noise there,
Mhm.
right? The week leading up to that. So we kind of talked about it a little bit like offline.
Yep.
Like the week leading up, did you because you said I think it was an Instagram post, you never had more than 160 on the bar, right? Or
Yep. No.
161, something like that. So w- what happened that week, do you think, like between the ears that you showed up at, in Columbus? No one's there, right? No one's in the stands. Maybe your parents, I think, went,
It was
right?
like
That's about it. Like,
people that got away with finding a wristband could get in.
sure.
And luckily I was in a session with like some really popular people. So
Right.
people like when they tried, if they got in, they were going to watch our session.
Sure.
So, I
Right.
mean, like Maddie Rogers was in mine. I mean, she
Hmm.
has like 680,000 followers on
Right.
Instagram.
Right.
So where she is, if I was there,
Right.
like there'd be some people,
Right.
but actually the week leading up to the Arnold was actually a really horrible week for me. So my husband was sick all weekend, and I was super scared that I was going to get sick. So I was like nervous about that. And then my dog, who's like going to be 1 next week, gets into my purse and chews a bottle of medicine, and I end up in the ICU or the ER with her. So she's in the ICU for 2 days, and I'm thinking she's going to die. So I'm like super freaking out about that because I'm really worried about my dog. And then I honestly like texted my coach and I was like, if my dog's not fine, I'm not going. Like I need to be with her. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was really upset about that. And then they tell you there's not spectators going. So I freak out about that because my parents were going to drive me.
Right.
And then it's also the weekend of last chance for track. So I'm already getting my kids ready. And luckily they were already qualified. They were going to be fine.
Right.
So Friday comes around. We go to a last chance meet. I coach till like 8:30 p.m. We drive to Indianapolis, lose an hour to get there. So I'm already getting less sleep. And then my mom, she's like, I didn't want to tell you, but it was also daylight savings. So I also lost another hour of sleep.
Right.
So I guess I don't really know. Like I was freaking out kind of about it, and I didn't feel prepared. I didn't feel ready. And I mean, like you said, like I hadn't had 155 was the most I've ever had on the bar. And so, and I would have been happy like with my 156, the one that I had made. Like I was happy with that. Like that was a PR. But my goal was first time I just got to get a snatch in because I'm not that good at snatches yet. I just let me get my first snatch in and I'll feel fine.
Right.
So I guess I missed my last 2 snatches, which stunk, but I think next time I'll be fine. And then clean jerk came around, and then I was already kind of like nervous about it because we had been kind of talking about like Sarah and like, I mean, she's a 2-time Olympian. Like she's like the queen. Right. And people have like kind of like chitter chatter about like, oh, you could clean and jerk with Sarah. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, I guess, beating her in it, which I didn't even know until then. Which doesn't mean that much, but it was still kind of like a little bit of a confidence booster. Like, oh, I do belong with these girls, you know?
Right.
But yeah, I had an American record on the bar and got called for a press out, which was fine. Like everyone was saying it didn't look like a press out, but I knew it was like immediately. I knew it would not count. But I was just glad I made the clean because I had it. But yeah, it was a really amazing weekend, and I wish it wouldn't have felt so rushed. I wish there could have been more people there. We were supposed to be on the main stage where like Thor and what's the big strongman guy? Brian Shaw. Like we were supposed to be on the stage like the one they did their stuff on, but because of the virus, like everything got changed. But it ended up working out fine, and it was but I guess I've always competed really well compared to practicing and training. I think that's one of the benefits of having I train in my garage by myself when I'm exhausted. And even if I have like 5 people watching me, I just get this giant adrenaline rush. So there was quite a few people watching my session, and just with those people around, I was like, all right, I can do this. It's fine. You know, so just having the people makes me feel fine. You know, I'm kind of adrenaline junkie when it comes to that.
So what's different with like you're a national champion discus thrower, and now you're world class. I'll throw it out there. You're world class Olympic weightlifter. How do you prepare differently? Like, did you when you approached throwing the discus? Is it different than the week leading up to competing at the Arnold Classic? Or I know you were going to compete at senior nationals in May, and I think they postponed that. Like, talk about is it different? Is it not different? I mean, because you're elite thrower, now you're elite weightlifter. Like, is the mindset all the same? Like, you're just whatever it takes, or is there something else? Because I think sometimes people take for granted she's been lifting for her whole career. Like it's she should be lifting this far. It's only been what 30 months? Like not even right? And
that's about 29, 30 months.
Yeah. So it's like how it just fascinates me. I'm sorry. I'm so enthralled by that we're having this conversation, but how do you do that?
Like I said, I always felt more confident in the weight room than I did on the track anyway.
Right.
I just feel like so many things could go wrong in such a short amount of time in throwing, which totally
Right.
can happen in weightlifting too.
Right.
And that's kind of where I feel like with snatches and whatnot,
Mhm.
like I feel very like elementary in them, and I
Right.
feel like so many things can go wrong in such a short
Mhm.
amount of time. And but my strength like is always there, you
Right.
know. So I know once, especially in snatch, like once I get more technical, like I'll be
Mhm.
fine. But
Right.
like in throwing, I guess like even with like discus or hammer, like I those events are, I mean, I couldn't utilize my muscle the way I wanted in
Mhm.
those events, you know?
Right.
Like in hammer especially, like I just wanted to grip rip, you know?
Right.
That's and I threw okay in hammer, but I mean, I guess I don't know.
Mhm.
I couldn't utilize my talents and my like strengths
Sure.
literally
Right.
as as confident as I could in weightlifting, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
So and like on a bad day in weightlifting, I don't it's not really a bad day, stuff just feels really heavy.
Right.
You know, on a bad day weightlifting, it feels heavier than it should, you
Right.
know?
Mhm.
Um, or you're just like, this is just a bad day, you know?
Right.
But it doesn't affect me mentally as much as it does throwing, which my
Mhm.
coach would probably laugh at that because he thinks I'm crazy sometimes. But like in throwing, that was a big reason why I stopped. Like
Right.
it was too stressful at
Mhm.
that point. And I'm not at that point with weightlifting, and I
Mhm.
hope I never get to that point.
Mhm.
But when my like mental, I guess, health went
Mhm.
down because of how I was acting as a thrower and basing my self-worth on how I was throwing, like that's how I
Right.
kind of knew it was time to be done. And I don't necessarily feel like that with
Mhm.
weightlifting.
Mhm. So what are your next steps? I mean, we're in, I mean, I'm 38, like I just turned 38 last month. I never thought we would live through something like we're going through right now. Like what do you, I mean, things are getting canceled left and right. If you don't compete, like is there opportunities that you think that you'll be able to get on the platform again this year?
So the next one that I have scheduled for sure would be in December. So I
Oh,
feel
that's sure.
decently confident that that
Mhm.
won't be canceled, I
Right.
hope. So our national meet, our senior national meet, which was supposed to be in May, is
Mhm.
actually with that meet in December.
Okay.
So basically, like if you sign up for one of them, you basically compete in both.
Sure.
So I don't really understand it. It's kind of
Mhm.
weird. I'm still trying to understand weightlifting,
Mhm.
but I pretty much just show up and
Mhm.
do what I need to do.
Mhm.
But so I'm hoping that's not canceled. There's another meet in September in Vegas that I mean, there's like American Open meets they call them.
Right. Yep. Yep.
So September there's one in Vegas. I think it's in Vegas. So
Mhm.
if that's not canceled, I'd kind of like to do that one.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I only compete like 3 or 4 times a year
Mhm.
anyway. So I don't feel like, and I competed in October, December, and March. So I feel I'm not sad that
Mhm.
nationals was canceled really. Like I'm sad for a lot of other people,
Mhm.
but personally I'm not that upset
Sure.
about it.
Mhm.
I didn't feel ready. I mean, it's only like what 6 weeks away. Like it's not
Yeah.
far,
Well,
maybe
right.
8.
Yeah.
So I guess until then, I'm really the last couple weeks I'm really trying to figure out how to snatch,
Mhm.
because my clean and jerk's like competitive like on a
Mhm.
international level, but my
Right.
snatch, because my total is like added, like I'm not
Mhm.
overly competitive yet as a
Right.
full lifter.
Mhm.
So I'm just trying to like really step back and try to figure out that lift and um, I guess get stuff ready for the season next year for
Mhm.
our kids and do some stuff around the house that I haven't done in a
Right.
year.
Sure.
So I guess that's kind of my plan
Mhm.
for everything, but I guess we'll see.
What about the Olympic trials in 21? What do you think?
So in weightlifting, it's really strange. So in weightlifting, the like trials, I guess, start like 2 years before.
Mhm.
So you have to make like international teams, you have to make like all these other meets. So for me, it's not really possible to go to 2021.
Mhm.
But as long as I'm feeling like healthy and still improving, like I
Sure.
intend to still train till 2024,
Right.
which would probably make me like the oldest person to be lifting because a lot of the girls I'm lifting with are pretty young.
Mhm.
But I think I don't know. Hopefully my like old lady strength kicks in
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I keep getting better, and we'll see
But your
what happens.
training age, you're still really young, right? I
Yeah,
mean, if you look at age versus mileage, I mean, you haven't been
yeah,
Olympic lifting since you were like 12.
right. No.
So you started a little later, and you just said you're shy under 30, right?
Yep.
So you'd be 33, 34 when 24 comes around.
Yep.
I think you'll be okay. I think you have plenty of time, right?
Well, and a lot of, I mean, in strength sports, it's not that bad, like
Right.
so
Right.
hopefully, I mean, that'll be my plan for right now until I
Mm-hmm.
compete next, is just get as strong as I can. And
Sure.
I don't know, work some technique stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully between those two things, I can put something together, but we'll see.
So before I let you go, because I don't want to keep you too long here, like what advice would you have for somebody who's, thinking about making a transition to Olympic weightlifting, or somebody that's just like, like a senior that just graduated that was hoping to throw at the, 20 Olympic trials. Like if they came to you and said, Coach, what do I do? I have 18 months. Do I go to grad school? Do I, retire? Like what advice do you have for somebody who's like on the cusp that wants to continue pursuing their dreams?
I guess track wise, I guess I would say, I guess I think it kind of depends, like if the athlete thinks they have to do it,
Mm-hmm.
if they're like, well, I just had a good year, a good career, and the Olympics are coming up, like I
Mm-hmm.
guess I should probably train. And I think the way they maybe relay it or express the situation might say
Mm-hmm.
a lot if they even want to or not.
Sure.
And again, I mean, I was okay. Like I threw like far enough in shot, but
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, it wasn't gonna go to the Olympics ever.
Right.
And I didn't know if I'd get better,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's okay sometimes for people to be content with ending.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, the name David Cornack, like he threw at Eau Claire, he threw what, 1980 something in the shot.
Yeah.
He would have got like fifth or sixth at D1 Nationals.
Yep.
And he's an unreal athlete, and he had a job lined up, and he's doing awesome. And he was not throwing after,
Right.
and everyone's like, why is he not throwing? Like, but he was content, he was content with being done. And I think stories like that are really cool ones to bring up, because
Right.
I think sometimes there's these kids that train after, and they're stressed out financially, and there's all these things going on in reality, like they might not even want to do it,
Right.
So I think just really, like, I think I'd be a good person to talk about that with, just because I am pretty realistic about it all. But as long as you have a job that works with it, like go for it. But if you have no plan, like maybe figure out a little plan first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess like transitioning to weightlifting, the nice thing about weightlifting is that you still get to compete. Like you still get to do things that are fun, and like challenge yourself. And you're probably somewhat like introduced to the sport because you were probably doing cleans or some type of snatching in, I guess, college. But I don't know. There's a lot more of the same type of cues and power and all that related between throwing and weightlifting. So I think that's why a lot of throwers make really good weightlifters. So if people are still wanting to compete in something, this is the sport to be in.
Sure.
Weightlifting.
Well, I apologize. I do have one more thing. So there were a couple questions from Instagram for you. So so the first question is, after throwing and weightlifting, what's your third, fourth, and fifth favorite sports?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, I love watching football. Like, I love college football.
Sure.
NFL's fine, but I prefer college football. What else? Again, I love basketball. I don't watch as much basketball as you'd think for how much I loved it. I've had athletes that threw for me that played basketball, so I watch a lot of those games just because they're on the team and I want to know how they're doing. And then what's my fifth favorite sport? I don't know really. I would say definitely not baseball, definitely not softball.
Sure.
I don't like those sports. I think it's just because I'm in track and I just
right.
Maybe powerlifting. I don't know if that counts. My sisters were good at that.
That counts.
Fun sport to watch.
Sure. Would you ever think about powerlifting?
I did a little bit. To be honest, it was really boring for me because to me, powerlifting was track minus the track. Like, because we did squat, bench, and deadlift and all of the track. And then I took the part that I actually liked, the throwing.
Right.
So I did it, and I had success with it because I did it right when I was done competing in college. So I was still really strong. And my dad does it, and my sisters did it. Like, my sister is a world champion powerlifter, and my dad's super strong, and he does it. But I don't think I'll ever do it.
No.
Yeah.
You never say never, right? You could
we'll
bench,
see.
right? We'll see, right? Let's see. The next one. This is more personal, and you don't have to answer obviously if you don't want to. How did you and your husband meet?
Oh, when I was in Madison coaching, my dad's cousin owns a printing company in Madison. And so that summer when I moved there, I wanted to kind of like establish myself there. So I called him up and I was like, I need a job. Like, can I work there a little bit? And so he's like, yeah, sure. When do you want to work? I was like, I mean, I want to work as much as I can in the summer,
Right.
make some money.
Mm-hmm.
So he worked at that company.
Okay.
So he worked there for what, like 13 years when we met. And then when I moved to Oshkosh, when we got married, he moved up here. So he had been at that company for a long time. So that's how we met.
And then the last one is, which athlete do you think has improved the most under your coaching?
Oh, geez. Definitely one of my athletes.
I think so. Let's see here.
Um,
Yeah, I definitely think it's one of your athletes. Yeah.
I would say, and I think the kids would agree with this. That's why I don't feel bad saying it.
Mhm.
I would probably say Anna. Anna's
Okay.
she's a junior. Well, she just finished her junior year.
Mhm.
But I think she threw like maybe like 22 feet in a shot in high school.
Okay.
And then her brother was on the team with my sister
Mhm.
at a different school. And so she asked me like at a meet randomly in high school if she could join. And
Mhm.
I think she was surprised when I told her, sure, like that's fine.
Mhm.
Because she really didn't throw that far,
Sure.
But I mean, she threw like just under 14 meters in the weight this year,
Mhm.
which I think is like super good,
Right.
for her. And she stayed like very positive throughout it all. And yeah, I think she's gotten the best, but I could probably find a reason why I could pick everyone,
Right.
but the kids are going to probably just be like, she's your favorite. That's why you
Right.
picked her.
That's right.
But they're all my favorite. So
I used to say that all the time too. Either that or I dislike all of you the
yeah,
same, right?
right.
Just kind of
So
keep everything on the up and up. But
I always tell them that I don't have favorites. I was like, I have how do I say it? I always say I don't have favorites. I could much rather make a list of 5 that I like the least more than
sure.
the people that I like the
Right.
best.
Right. Right.
But
Well, Mary, thanks so much.
yeah,
It was like 2 years coming here. I
great.
appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk about life and stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Mary. Take care.
See you later.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.